Think about that while we talk to Dave Workman, the Seattle Gun Rights Examiner. Dave, how you doing tonight, sir?
Well, I'm fine. I want to hear the rest of the story about Cameron here, though.
We only have about 18 minutes left in the show, unfortunately, Mr. Workman. There's a lot to discuss. Hey, listen, I got to tell you, you've got a great column out right now, following up on what Sean Corinne has been reporting on at his blog, the All Nine Yards blog. He had a piece earlier this week about Mayors Against Illegal Guns using a nonprofit arm to, in essence, insert people in city governments around the country to advance the Mayors Against Illegal Guns agenda. And it looks like one of those places where they did this was Seattle, Washington.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating story. I talked to Sean the other day, right when he was breaking this thing, because he wanted to let me know that Seattle was on the hit parade. In the interim, since I first wrote about this, I think it was yesterday, I did a little more homework, and one of my readers hooked up with me with some information. This thing has gone on in Seattle since at least fiscal year 2008, when the city got a $75,000 one-year grant for putting this person in who could essentially organize anti-gun, or shall we say, sentiment against illegal guns, whatever that is. Nobody's ever explained it. But they want to go out and recruit new mayors to join the Mayors Against Illegal Guns. They want to recruit hunters and cooperative hunter organizations to help them testify in the state legislature, which that's lobbying. They want to recruit clergymen to talk to their congregation, to fire them up about gun control, and that's lobbying. It's really an interesting story. Now, in the last year, fiscal year 2012, that's been written out of the Seattle city budget, so they're no longer doing this, but that doesn't mean they're not going to come back.
Well, no, absolutely. And you have to wonder, I mean, if this has been on the book since FY 2008, why did it stop?
Well, it's a real head scratcher for me. They ran into some budget problems in Seattle, and what it looks like is that there was not enough matching money or additional funding to provide for some of the things that the $75,000 grant didn't cover. Now, I got hold of a document for, I think it's Orlando, Florida, and my dear friend Marion Hammer, actually, former NRA president Marion Hammer, sent me an email late last night with some stuff too that I looked at. In Orlando, their agreement, a memorandum of understanding with the Mayors Against Illegal Guns and their subsidiary funding arm, was that the city would provide matching money to some degree to help pay for some of the things that the grant didn't cover. Now, that matching money, that's public money. And I think that's where Sean really hit a nerve with this story.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the other gun rights examiners are looking at this, too. You can't use public money for that sort of thing. At least I never thought you could.
Right. Well, I mean, again, just, and that's the funny thing. Imagine, Dave, what the reaction would be from the Seattle Post-Intelligencer if it had been revealed via a blog that the NRA Foundation had provided, grant money to the city of Seattle for a youth shooting sports coordinator. And the city, and the city matched the funds so that they could actually have this position.
Yeah, they'd be screaming bloody murder. The NRA wants to arm children. They want to teach kids how to kill, yada yada yada. And the dirty old city of Seattle is helping pay for this with public money. That's the kind of editorial you'd see, and I think that would generally apply to any city in the United States that would accept a grant like that from the NRA. And then turn around, and part of that grant would require that somebody would reach out to various organizations. Say they reached out to clergymen to talk to their congregations about the healthy aspect of learning how to shoot and learning how to handle firearm safety.
Right.
There'd be an interesting story to write about too. I think the riots and the broken glass would probably follow.
Well, I think that you're right. But again, where Sean Corina has done this work, we've not seen the Seattle PI do this. We instead, Dave, we've seen you do a great job reporting on this. But as Sean pointed out, down in Orlando, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Minneapolis, Minnesota, there are some major cities where apparently, these coordinators have been added, at least partly, with taxpayer dollars to the city payroll. And you again have to wonder why this is not interesting for these local press outlets. I think it's a fascinating story no matter where you stand on the issue.
It is a fascinating story. And it's funny, when I was talking to Sean the other day, he literally tripped over this story. He told me he was doing some research for some other project that he was working on, and he discovered this goofy budget item, and he kind of scratched his head and, I wonder where this is going to go. And he followed the money. Remember, that's what they used to tell us back in the old Watergate days, follow the money. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of the same thing that has happened with Fast and Furious. You follow the money, and suddenly you come up with an FBI-paid informant helping them buy all these guns for Mexico. But in this case, with the Mayors Against Illegal Guns, where they're essentially running this money through this subsidiary organization to finance these grants, Sean came up with all of these different cities. I think it's about 7 or 8, maybe 9 of them that he's listed, including Seattle, that have taken this money. And I looked at the list. I did some digging around before I wrote my column yesterday. I told one of the other guys on my staff, dig into this a little further. And he went out and got into the city of Seattle's budget process. He came up with some really interesting documents. And then I got an email from one of my readers, as I mentioned earlier, who had tracked it even further back to 2008. So this has been going on for a while, and nobody knew about this. That's the thing. Nobody knew that any of these cities was actually investing public taxpayer money to help subsidize what essentially is a coordinator for an anti-gun lobbying organization.
Absolutely. And, Dave, we have seen Mayors Against Illegal Guns, since its founding, spend a lot of money on advertising. They've taken out full-page ads in USA Today. They certainly are not adverse to touting their efforts to advance their anti-gun agenda. So the fact that we didn't see a lot of backslapping regarding these positions kind of tells me that they wanted to keep this one on the down low.
Well, yeah, I think you're right. To me, all of this is it's all done under the radar, and the reason they want it kept under the radar is because they didn't want anybody to know. And until maybe the ink is dry on an agreement, or maybe a piece of legislation is passed, or they've gotten people fired up to go down to the state capitol, in my case Olympia, or Tallahassee, someplace where they've got a movement, some energy behind a piece of anti-gun legislation, and only until after the fact would anybody really find out that, hey, wait a minute, the Mayors Against Illegal Guns was working with the city and they even put a staff person on the city payroll to do this. Wait a minute. But by then, it's too late.
Yeah, well, exactly right. It is too late. Now, do we know, Dave, what was this coordinator? What did they do? I mean, were they able to advance any anti-gun ordinances? We know the city of Seattle has been anti-gun, has had some anti-gun ordinances in place over the past couple of years that they tried to defend in court. Was there any involvement, to the best of your knowledge, with this coordinator that was, quote, largely funded by this grant?
Well, I'm still trying to find that out, and I'm digging around right now. I think one thing that may have contributed to writing that out of the budget in Seattle, as you probably know, because we've laughed about this before, Seattle just got clobbered in court when they tried to pull an end run around state preemption in Washington by adopting not an ordinance, but a regulation and a rule that you could not carry firearms on city park property, even if you were licensed to carry concealed. And of course, we're an open carry state, even if you were doing that legally. The National Rifle Association, Second Amendment Foundation, Citizens Committee, and the Washington Arms Collectors all joined in a lawsuit with 5 individual citizens, and we cleaned their clock in Seattle. We beat them in King County Superior Court at the trial level. The city of Seattle appealed. The State Court of Appeals, in a unanimous ruling, upheld what the trial court said, that the city of Seattle couldn't do this. It was a violation of state preemption. So they jumped one more step, tried to take this to the state Supreme Court. The Supreme Court wouldn't even hear it. Said, hey, you guys lost.
Absolutely. Hey, Dave, with that, we got to let you go, so we're out of time. But thank you again for coming on the program tonight. Look forward to doing this again soon.